I got reborn back to the day my sister-in-law decided to raise her baby as a vegan. Last time I tried to stop her, her son murdered me for it. My sister-in-law Karen is a hardcore vegan. She wants to raise her baby on a pure plant-based diet. She's even planning to replace my nephew's formula with soy milk. As a pediatrician, I suggested a balanced diet with proper nutrition. Eventually, my nephew grew up healthy, but whenever he faced difficulties, Karen would tell him, "You were supposed to be a blessed vegan baby from birth, but your Aunt Laura ruined your karmic blessing by making you eat meat." He resented me for years because of this, and one night, while I was sleeping, he smothered me to death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day Karen asked for my advice. This time, I said, "You're his mother." It's her call. I was reborn on the day of my nephew's 1-month celebration party. Karen Thompson was holding her baby, writing to all the relatives about her pure vegan baby. She said she'd been following a strict vegan diet for 2 years, same during pregnancy. Never touched eggs or milk. The baby would be raised vegan too, no formula, only soy milk. The relatives thought it was ridiculous. They all tried to persuade her that growing children need proper nutrition. How could he not have formula? What if it affected his development? She dismissed them. "You don't understand. Vegan babies have special blessings. They're smarter than regular kids, right? Laura, you're a doctor. Tell them how much better vegan feeding is." As she spoke, her eyes turned to me. I was momentarily dazed, then remembered in my previous life, she'd asked me the same question in front of everyone. Back then, with my professional integrity, I told her the truth. I'd treated all kinds of malnourished children in pediatrics. I'd seen these pure vegan babies that were popular in extremist vegan circles. Most were smaller and slower than their peers, with weaker constitutions. Children's growth requires many micronutrients that pure plant diets can't provide. They definitely need a balanced diet with proper nutrition. Parents' face had darkened, but she said nothing. Finally, after the elders' persuasion, my brother Mike decided the child couldn't be raised vegan. My little nephew grew up healthy and safe, but what I didn't expect was that every difficulty he faced afterward would be blamed on me by his mother. When he struggled with school or fought with classmates, Karen would tell him, "You were supposed to be a blessed vegan baby with natural karma. You would have succeeded at everything, but your Aunt Laura destroyed your blessing." So he grew up hating me. Finally, during one of my visits home, he drugged my milk with sleeping pills, came into my room, and smothered me with a pillow. The living room security camera caught a corner of it. When Karen discovered it, she immediately had Mike delete the footage. Then they told everyone I died suddenly, and my mother, who cried herself hoarse at my funeral, held my portrait after all the guests left and said, "Laura, I'm sorry. I've already lost a daughter. I can't lose my grandson too." She knew everything but chose silence. These were the family members I'd treated with sincerity. Thinking of this, I looked at Karen's eager eyes and smiled calmly. Parents know best. How to raise a child is obviously the mother's decision. She was very satisfied with my answer. "See, even the doctor says so. What else is there to question?" Yes, this time, I wanted to see just how blessed her vegan baby would be. After the party ended, Mom asked me to sit on the couch. "Laura, you know we're not in the city, so we'll be counting on you for the baby's formula and everything. In my previous life, whenever they needed formula or baby food, they'd make me buy it. Their excuse was, since you're the one pushing scientific feeding, you should be responsible." During that period, money flowed out of my account like water. When I wanted to settle accounts with them, Mom would always say, "We're family, why be so calculated?" So most of their child-rearing expenses were extracted from me, but this time I wasn't going to be the sucker anymore. Mom, Karen said pure vegan feeding. "Which formula on the market is vegan?" Her smile froze as she looked at Karen, not daring to offend her daughter-in-law. "Then what should we do?" "What to do? Feed him soy milk, of course." I held her hand, smiling sweetly as I consoled her. "Oh Mom, Karen knows how to raise a child. You shouldn't worry about it." She awkwardly had to let it go. Then she watched helplessly as Karen ordered a huge bag of soybeans online and ordered her to make fresh soy milk every day. 2 months later, in the middle of the night, I got a call from back home. It was my brother Mike calling. "Laura, Tommy's running a high fever. You need to come back and take him to the hospital. Tommy was my nephew's name. In my previous life it was the same. Whenever he had the slightest headache or fever, their first reaction was to call me. They wouldn't even go to the hospital themselves, just dumped everything on me, and I, brainwashed by moms where family rhetoric took care of everything. Now looking at my finished shit, I leisurely took off my white coat and stretched. Sorry Mike, I'm on duty seeing patients, can't leave. His voice became agitated. Seeing what patients? Don't you understand priorities? How can strangers be more important than your own nephew? I smiled calmly. Mike, don't panic. Karen said vegan babies have blessings. Their bodies are stronger than regular babies. I thought he wouldn't get sick, so I wasn't prepared. Mike cursed at me, then turned his anger on Karen. Didn't you say eating vegan makes them healthier? Why is he still sick? Karen refused to back down. It's just a minor illness. Even without the hospital, it's no big deal. This child has merit on him. Nothing will happen. Arguments erupted on the other end. The sounds of things breaking indoors, slamming rose and fell. By the time they finished fighting and got the child to a clinic, his fever had reached 106 degrees Fahrenheit, but he wouldn't die. Small clinics excel at these routine fevers. A few bottles of antibiotics and the effect is immediate. In contrast, major hospitals have strict war regulations and prohibit antibiotic abuse, so the fever doesn't break as quickly. In my previous life, Karen had made snide comments about this. Big hospital. The day after the 4 treatment, Tommy's temperature normalized. Karen was ecstatic, more convinced than ever that this was thanks to veganism. She immediately posted on social media, "Other babies stay hospitalized for 2 weeks with colds and don't improve. My vegan baby's fever broke overnight." She declared she would not only continue her strict vegan diet but also promote the benefits of vegan babies to more pregnant friends. In the comments, her circle friends all wrote, "Rejoice and praise, infinite merit." I scrolled past and calmly closed my screen. Let her waste away like this. Time flew by. When I saw Tommy again, he was already 7 years old. Very different from my impression in the previous life. His complexion was sallow, his hair withered, and he was a full 3 to 4 inches shorter than kids his age. He stood dully in the corner, unwilling to interact with anyone, but Karen was as proud as ever. Over these years, under her training, no one at home dared give Tommy a bite of meat. 7 years later, her son is frail and underdeveloped. She still believes it's the right path. What do you think happens when he realizes his entire childhood was built on a lie? I think the answer came much sooner than Karen expected. At Tommy's 7th birthday party, the other children were running around the backyard screaming and laughing while he sat alone on the porch, too weak to keep up for long. One of the boys pointed at the lunch table and asked loudly, "Why does Tommy always eat rabbit food?" Karen immediately stepped in. "Because my son is cleaner than the rest of you. His body isn't poisoned by animal products." The parents exchanged awkward looks. Tommy lowered his head and gripped the edge of his paper plate so hard it bent. Then came the school health examination. A week later, Mike called me for the first time in nearly a year. "Laura, can you come look at Tommy's report?" His voice sounded strained. When I arrived, Karen was pacing the living room while Tommy sat silently on the couch. The report lay on the table. Severe iron deficiency. Vitamin B12 deficiency. Protein energy malnutrition. Delayed bone development. The doctor had even highlighted one sentence in red ink. Patient's long-term diet appears nutritionally inadequate for age-related growth requirements. Karen slapped the report away the moment I picked it up. These doctors are biased. They're funded by meat companies. I almost laughed at how predictable she was. Mike, however, looked exhausted. Deep shadows sat beneath his eyes. 7 years of arguments had finally worn him down. "He faints in gym class now," he said quietly. "And his teacher says he can't concentrate." Karen snapped immediately. "That's because his spiritual energy is too pure for this toxic environment." But Tommy suddenly shouted, "Then why am I always sick?" The room fell silent. It was the first time I'd ever heard him raise his voice. His eyes were red. You said vegan kids were supposed to be stronger. You said I'd be smarter than everyone else. Then why am I the shortest boy in class? Why can't I run like them? Why do they laugh at me? Karen froze. Then, just like in my previous life, she looked for someone else to blame. Her gaze landed on me instantly. It's because your aunt interfered with your karma before you turned one. If she hadn't forced formula on you when you had that fever. I was 2 months old. Tommy screamed. Even Mike looked startled. Tommy stood up so suddenly the couch cushions shifted beneath him. You blame Aunt Laura for everything. Every single thing. Bad grades, getting sick, being short, everything. Karen's face turned pale. Children weren't stupid. They noticed more than adults realized. Tommy's hands trembled. Last week I secretly ate chicken nuggets at school. Karen gasped like he'd confessed to murder. Tommy looked at her with tears streaming down his face. And nothing happened. The room became deathly quiet. No lightning struck me. No curse happened. His voice cracked. I just wasn't hungry all the time for once. Mike slowly turned toward Karen. You told him meat would poison him? Karen immediately panicked. I was protecting his purity. But Tommy was crying too hard now. I lied to my friends because I was embarrassed. I told them I had a disease so they'd stop asking why I never ate normal food. Mike suddenly slammed his fist onto the table so hard the cups rattled. Enough. Even Karen jumped. For years he'd avoided confronting her directly, always taking the easier path. But now he looked at his son, tiny, pale, frail, and finally saw what everyone else had been seeing. Not a blessed vegan child. A neglected one. Karen burst into tears instantly. You all think I'm a bad mother. No one answered. Because for the first time, even she seemed to realize the possibility herself. After that day, Mike took over most of Tommy's meals. The boy started eating eggs first, then dairy, then meat cautiously like someone approaching forbidden poison. Within months, the changes were obvious. His cheeks regained color. His hair became healthier. He grew nearly 2 inches in a single year. And Karen? She spiraled deeper into online vegan extremist groups. According to her, Tommy's improvement wasn't from nutrition. It was because his vegan foundation during infancy purified his body permanently. She would rather rewrite reality than admit she'd hurt her own child. Some people would rather sacrifice everyone around them than admit they were wrong. But unlike my previous life, this time Tommy no longer hated me. One evening, while I was leaving after dinner, he awkwardly stopped me at the door. Aunt Laura. I turned around. He stared at the floor for several seconds before mumbling quietly. I'm sorry for how Mom treated you. I looked at the skinny little boy who, in another lifetime, had murdered me before he even turned 20. Then I smiled faintly. It's not your fault. Because this time, he finally had the chance to become someone else.